Hello and welcome to this edition of Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Farrell Tata, your host, and I'd like to welcome my guest today, Lynn Siegel. Lynn is the Executive Director of Hope House Foundation, and our issue today is economy, and our topic is employment and unemployment for the disabled. Thank you for joining us today, Lynn.
Thank you for having me.
So as I understand it, Hope House Foundation is not really a house, so can you explain a little bit of what it is and how you became involved with it?
Yes. In the late 1960s, there was a group of parents who really wanted something different for their sons and daughters than state institutions. And at that time, that's all Virginia offered, were these large state institutions, kind of out of sight, out of mind. And so they called themselves Hope House because they were a concrete group, and they were literally hoping that someone would give them a house. In their second meeting, they tacked on the word foundation because they thought that sounded like something you would give a house to.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they, just waited. And it took about 6 years until a woman who lived on Granby Street donated her family home, and the first group home was opened in 1969. For people with disabilities. But interesting enough, none of their kids went into it because what they learned is there were all these families around Hampton Roads that were in much more critical situations than they themselves were. So that's how it was formed. And then as it grew, we opened up lots of group homes. And at our height, we had 13 group homes up until 1984. And then we did something profound. We asked people with disabilities, did they like living in group homes? And we learned that people wanted three things. They wanted their own home, that no matter how many times we said, this is your home, they knew it wasn't. It was the agency's home. 2, they wanted a real job. And 3, they wanted friends that were not paid to be in their life.
Oh, wow.
So that really set us off on the path of closing all the group homes, and today we support everyone in their own home.
Wow. So how do they find out about you?
Well, the Community Service Board system in Virginia is a single point of entry. We also do a lot of events. So we do the Stockley Gardens Art Festival in Norfolk. We almost have something going on every single month. And we have a big website presence that you can find us on, as well as social media, of course.
All right, so can we talk a little bit and clarify the disability? It's not only physical, but it's also intellectual disability too?
Yes, the primary people that we support have an intellectual or developmental disability, and many of them also have accompanying physical disabilities. But our primary group that we support are people with intellectual disabilities.
And what is the age?
I think the youngest person we support is 19, and the oldest person we support is 93.
Now, do you help support them in their private home, but then you also help them with employment?
Yes, we support them getting to jobs. We advocate for them to get different jobs than they have. But in the state of Virginia, primarily what is available to people with intellectual disabilities are day centers or sheltered workshops. And in fact, nationally, of any other group, people with intellectual disabilities have the highest unemployment rate, bar none. And it has not moved for 30 years.
Wow. So what are some of the numbers nationally and in our state?
Well, right now, the unemployment rate for people with intellectual disabilities hovers around 60%.
Oh my goodness.
So that's huge.
That's national?
That's national.
And then,
in our state, we're around that. People say it's anywhere from 47% to 60% if you count employment in the sheltered workshops, which is a sub-minimal wage. And
well, so do you help them with their home first and then employment, or employment and then home?
we really help you have a life. And so having a job and understanding when you need to get there and how you need to dress and some work skills, that's just part of life. But there's other organizations in Hampton Roads and in the state of Virginia that specialize in jobs or sheltered workshop or day centers for people with disabilities. What we really specialize in is what would be termed residential, or really living your life in your own home and everything that comes with that, whether it be vocational or social or spiritual or anything.
So do they come and meet with you, and like how does it work if somebody comes to you or you get a call from a parent maybe, or
Right.
the actual person? What's the process?
Well, the primary funding in the state of Virginia is through Medicaid waiver. So they usually get a case manager first through an area community service board, and there's 40 of them in the state of Virginia. So plenty of them around.
And you work with all of them.
We work with at least 8 of them just in Hampton Roads.
Wow.
But yes, we have worked with the Northern Virginia Community Service Board because of a family whose son wanted to live in his own apartment, and we're the only organization that supports people regardless of the complexity of their disability to live in their own home.
Oh, okay, so they come in and...
So they go to the Community Service
Right.
Board, they get a case manager. Then you have to wait for funding. So some families wait over 10 years
Oh
to
my
get funding.
goodness. Wow.
Right now in the state of Virginia, there's 12,000 people on the waiting list.
So what do they do in the meantime?
Survive, try to survive.
Oh my gosh.
And then people will move up to an emergency level of funding, usually when the mother hits the wall and can't do it anymore.
Well then, okay, so then let's say somebody gets off the list and they're able to get help,
Yes.
then what happens?
So they have a choice. So they can look at different agencies in our area, tour them, and then they get to decide what makes most sense for them. So people choose us.
Oh, wow. So, and when you say you kind of help them more stay in their home, right? So do you help
Yes.
them like
Everything
learn?
about life, so it ranges. People are all so different. So some people we help with budgeting, some people we help with meals, some people we help with getting to work, some people we help with making friends and having volunteer opportunities or places to belong. It really is such a range because the range of support needs are so different
Yeah.
as well. Just like you would find in regular life without a
Right.
disability. Some people need very little support, and some people need lots of support.
So do you, once they're one of your clients, do you call them clients?
We call them people we support.
All right, so the people you support,
Yeah.
do you stay with them as long as they need, or do you have a time frame, or how does...
It tends to be a very long-term service because having an intellectual disability or developmental happens usually before the age of 18.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not something that goes away
Right.
or there's a cure or something.
Right.
Now, what we've learned is that as we support people when they're younger, they need less support as they gain skills, make friends, have clubs, have relationships, churches that they belong to. And then the aging process starts. And
Right.
like all of us, support will increase.
Right. So now, who helps you? Do you have volunteers, or are there paid staff, and does each one of your people that you support, do they have their own person?
We do have volunteers, and we do have paid staff, both. And most people have a key person that they work a lot with, but some people whose needs are very complex, they may use a wheelchair, they may need help with eating, they may need help with dressing,
Yeah.
showering, all those kinds of things. There will be more people involved in their life.
Does the insurance help pay for those kind of people that actually have to have an assistant there all the time?
No, there's not really any insurance involved. It's really funding through Virginia's Medicaid waiver system.
And how many, at any given time, how many people are you actually supporting?
We're supporting 125 people right now on the south side of Virginia.
And is that typical, or does that number change?
Well, when we first started, we were very small. We
Yeah.
supported like 22 people when I first started, and I think in the next year it went up to 30. So over the years, we have increased the number of people we support.
And you've been at this for a while, right?
Yes, I
so
have.
talk about a little bit about some of the stereotypes, from when you first started to now, because I feel like there's a much more understanding and tolerance and appreciation of those with these kind of disabilities than there were even when I was young.
Right. Well, because, when I started, people with disabilities weren't in the regular school system. So people didn't have any any exposure to them.
Yeah.
Or they were in institutions, so they weren't your neighbors.
Right.
They weren't in your church.
Right.
They weren't in your
put
work
away,
site.
like
Yes,
you said. They
exactly.
They went away.
So there was a lot of misconceptions
Right.
that were about people with disabilities, like they were childlike,
Right.
or they should be seen as some kind of charitable situation.
Yeah.
And now that when Public Law 94-142 passed,
Wow.
which was the right to a free and public education for people with
Yeah.
disabilities as well, which in Norfolk implemented in 1976.
Oh, yeah.
Then you had much more exposure with kids at a younger age. And as those kids became adults, it didn't seem odd.
Right.
And they had different impressions of who people were and the
Yeah.
gifts that they bring by being included in a community.
So, is there a law? I mean, there are definitely laws that protect people with disabilities. So, are you mandated by law as far as providing these kind of services that you
Oh,
offer?
yes. I mean, there's lots of regulations, but the really big laws are the ADA, American with Disabilities Act, and then Olmstead. And Olmstead really means that people with disabilities deserve and have the right to live in the least restrictive environment possible. Now, interesting enough, Virginia didn't meet those two laws, and so the Department of Justice has become a visitor in our state, and we
Wow.
now have an active settlement agreement with the federal government to change many of our practices here in this state.
Wow. So you've seen improvements since
Oh my
this.
gosh, yes. Oh, yes.
So what is what's the most helpful, as far as employment? Like what could the community do to help support providing jobs for people with disabilities?
I think, again, taking away some of the stereotypes,
Yeah.
and assuming that people are not as capable as they can be when they learn a particular job. I think the general public chronically underestimates people with disabilities and rarely overestimates
Yeah.
them. And what we know about people is, for instance, we've been supporting a guy named Kirk, and he plays the piano beautifully. Now, when he was younger, he would have loved to have had that job at Nordstrom's,
Yeah.
playing the piano,
Yeah.
Now, would he been considered for that?
Right. Probably not.
Probably not. I think people with disabilities typically get considered for janitorial or maybe working in fast food, when
Yeah.
really, of the 125 people that we support, there are a multitude of talents among them. So really just being open.
Yeah.
Just being open, and people want to work. We know that of the unemployment rate, which is so huge, that over 45% of the people unemployed actively want a job, want a
Right.
chance.
So, can you talk a little bit about the physical versus intellectual? You said that a lot of them, they do have other physical, but do you work
Yes.
with some that only have physical disabilities?
No, our primary population that we support is intellectual or developmental disabilities. But certainly we work with people who use wheelchairs or use some motor device. We use a lot of technology in our services. We have people that don't hear, people that don't see. But not everybody has physical
Yeah.
disabilities.
So are you in touch with, I know you said AID in particular, but are you in touch with other organizations to help funnel and get additional resources?
Oh,
for the
yes. We
people you work
partner with lots of different organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, Lynn, this is such a great resource for people, and people need to know. We're going to take a break in just a second, but how can people reach you?
They can either call us at 757-625-6161 or reach us on the web, which is hope-house.org.
Okay, well, Lynn, we are, as I said, if you'll stay with us through the break.
Sure.
I'm Ann Farrell Tata. We've been joined by Lynn Siegel, and stay with us. We'll be right back and talk more about helping those with disabilities. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Farrell Tata, and we're going to continue our discussion with Lynn Siegel, who is the Executive Director of Hope House Foundation. And we're switching gears a little bit, and our issue is housing, and our topic is housing for the disabled. So thanks for staying with us, Lynn.
Sure.
So we were talking a little bit about some of the differences even with physical versus intellectual, and your organization helps primarily those with intellectual disabilities. So can you talk a little bit about the housing? How do you help them, and how does the housing work?
Sure. Well, in the state of Virginia, most people with disabilities who are adults that are seeking housing are given the choice of a group home. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is Virginia is ranked at the bottom of the country in terms of per capita funding for people with disabilities. We hover between ranking of 48th and 47th. Yet we're the 7th richest state in the country. So there's a big gap in how Virginia values. And there's a study done about, well, what's the difference with the states at the bottom and the states at the top? You know, what are the factors? And this study found that it had nothing to do with the tax base. It had nothing to do with whether Republicans or Democrats were in charge. It really only had to do with one thing, and that was the citizens of that state demanded it.
Wow.
It's us.
Yeah.
It's us.
But if we don't know there's a problem,
exactly.
If it's not in your world, you wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
Right.
So most people run group homes because of the poor funding.
Yeah.
Supporting people in their own home is more costly.
Right.
It takes many more resources, so that's why agencies don't do that.
Yeah.
But in '84, when people told us they didn't like living in group homes, you know, it's kind of like once you know a truth, it takes so much more energy to pretend that you don't.
Yeah.
So we helped set up a separate organization called the Residential Corporation. And that was set up to do nothing but acquire apartment complexes of, say, anywhere from 35 units to 60 units, where 6 or 7 people with disabilities could live who needed access to 24/7 service, but also all the other units were rented to just private citizens who needed also safe and affordable housing. So all those complexes make money.
Right.
So we're able to take those profits and help people and subsidize them in their own home if they don't have a government subsidy like a Section 8 voucher, which is available for just people who are living below the poverty line, right? So we started that. Now we own 10 apartment complexes.
Wow. In all the cities?
In Hampton Roads, yeah, it's over 200 units.
Wow.
But we don't occupy most of them. It's really a community resource. We also work in apartment complexes owned by other people.
Right.
But we always rent a staff apartment in each complex so we can move in and out of people's apartments based on their individual needs of when they need services. Because some people are night owls.
Yeah.
They need services late at night. Some people love to get up early in the morning, so they need services at a different time.
Yeah.
But nobody wants a staff person standing in their home watching them.
Right.
You know, and everyone with a disability can go some amount of time without staff supervision because of either technological aspects in their home, smart home technology, or just because they have the skills to just hang back and watch a TV show or whatever they want to do.
Wait, just real quick. You said you own the 10 homes, but you said you don't occupy
10 apartment
10 apartment complexes, but you don't occupy the majority of them?
We don't occupy the majority of the units.
Oh, the majority are by just regular renters.
Yes. Okay. Because that creates natural integration.
Right.
Within
and also income, probably to help support these.
Yes, but our main intent was how do we meet people?
Yeah.
It's our next door neighbors, the person that lives upstairs. It's in jobs. So people don't have jobs, but and only an option to just be with other people with disabilities.
Right.
Then an integrated housing scheme is the first level for that. And that was our intent.
Well, and in 1984, they said they want friends that were not paid to be friends.
That's
so this provides a great opportunity to have natural friends.
That's right.
So that is fascinating. So when you get these apartments, do you have to outfit them for disability?
For some people, we do, to make them like barrier-free. If you're using a wheelchair, yes. So we will renovate them or lower the counters or whatever that's needed. And some people, they don't need any kind of renovation at all.
So each of these 10 apartment complexes, each one of those has one apartment that is for this staff person.
Yes, for staff to move in and out of, just so that people have their own privacy. And, you know, what's the point of having your own home if somebody else is always in it?
Right. Oh, so they don't have their own place, just like a like an RA in a dorm where they can just go knock on the door and get help. As far as a staff person?
Well, they could. I mean, people can call the staff. They can certainly go to the staff apartment. But we kind of know people fairly well, so we know that people have a rhythm, you know, of their day. So if it's an emergency or something, yes, people can always access us. But we kind of know where people are and what's their rhythm of life and when they need support and what time do they like to eat and those kinds of things.
So you're 120. You're very in touch with all of these people that you support. You know each of their files and you know what they need and know how to help them.
Yes.
I mean, that's so encouraging that this is available.
And it's the same thing you and I would want.
Yeah.
I mean, as we age, most people in the baby boomer generation has no intention of going into nursing homes.
Right.
This is exactly the same thing.
That is
exactly.
amazing. So, all right, I love hearing about specific, success stories, but what about, I have a neighbor who has a child that is profoundly disabled intellectually, profoundly. Yes. And she's had a really hard time. She's getting ready, she's been in high school, she just graduated this year from public high school in her class. What's next for her? She's living at her mom's house, her parents' house right now, who take care of her, but what opportunities are there for somebody like that?
Well, that's interesting because we spend all this money putting people through the school system who are in special ed or, have accommodations.
Right.
And then they come out of high school and it's like,
there's nothing for her.
There's nothing.
Or at least they're telling
Doesn't appear to be, right? So the first thing I would advise your neighbor is to get her on the waiting list for Medicaid waiver services. And whatever city she's in, Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Norfolk, she should go to the Community Services Board and get a case manager assigned.
Okay.
And then advocate strongly that she wants some kind of job. She wants some kind of meaningful activity to do. And you don't have to do that 40 hours a week. You can do that 20, or depending on who you are. And just like anybody else without a disability, her daughter probably has, whether she expresses it or not, aspirations to be an adult.
Yeah.
And to have her home at one time.
Right.
And there is no reason she cannot. The severity of a disability does not prevent people from getting the support they need to live in their own home. And actually, it's safer. I think families a lot of times think, oh, a group home or a closed environment is safer.
Yeah.
It must be. Well,
it sounds safer. To put your child in an apartment complex by herself would be frightening.
Well, prisons are secure environments, and they're not that safe. And nursing homes are secure environments, and they're not that safe. And institutions, supposedly. So when you put people in a group based on a label in a closed environment, actually, it's not as safe as when people live among everyone else, because why? A lot of eyes.
Right.
A lot of eyes.
That's true.
And if they're getting the right support, it's not just putting someone in an apartment and saying, sink or swim.
Yeah.
It's getting to know that person. It's being there when they need you. It's having emergency systems and technology in place so people can live very, very safely.
Well, and I know you said that everyone is different and each case is so individualized, but is there sort of a range of how often you go and visit with the people that you support?
Well, I would say if you thought about it as a bell curve, we support a minority of people that need drop-in services, that, they have jobs, they have a lot of friends, and we're just kind of checking in, sometimes daily, sometimes a couple times a week. And then we have a minority of people who really have total care needs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of support that they need. It's probably almost every hour for the bulk of that hour.
Yeah.
And the majority of people in that bell curve need access to 24/7. So sometimes they need things for meals, looking for a job, transportation, talking about a new person they'd like to date or be friends with, or what kind of fishing gear should I buy so I can go fishing. It's really such a range, and it's really so different.
Yeah. Do you help them with their love life too?
Yes.
Do you help them, counsel them on dating?
Oh, we have people dating. We have people who have been married. Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh. So can you tell me about somebody that stands out?
Well, I would say that love is love is love.
Yeah.
I remember this one particular gentleman. He was Jewish, and he fell head over heels for a woman that was Catholic. And his dad came into my office and he was like, "We cannot have this, we cannot have this." And I say to him, "Is this the first time a Jewish man has fallen in love with a Gentile?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Well, what do you do in those circumstances?" He goes, "Well, I talk to the rabbi." I said, "Talk to the rabbi."
Yeah.
And the rabbi got the priest together. They held off the marriage for 1 year, but they
Yeah.
got married, and the whole family was there.
So wait, who were you helping, the husband or the wife?
We were serving them both.
Oh, you were serving them both. So they
Yes.
did they meet in one of the
Yes,
apartment complexes?
yes,
So
yes.
there's another benefit to these
Oh,
apartment
yes.
complexes.
Yes. I mean, having an intellectual disability has never made anyone unlovable.
Yeah, of
or
course.
made them have an inability to
Yeah.
love. That's really about us
Right.
and our prejudices.
So are you finding, now that you've been doing this for a while, are you finding more acceptance, more engagement from the other citizens?
I would say yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that presence, first of all, people just being present,
Yeah.
and people can get to know them on their own terms, you
Yeah.
know, and appreciate not only their talents and gifts,
Right.
but also let go of some of the bigotry and myths
Yeah.
about people with intellectual disabilities. So yes,
Yeah.
amazingly, it has gotten better with exposure. Doesn't everything?
See, I know that's, and we'll end on that encouraging note. But we only have about 10 seconds left for you to say the website one more time and the phone number, because this is a great resource for those that need this service.
Okay, the phone number is 757-625-6161, and our website is hope-house.org.
Thank you so much, Lynn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is Ann Farrell Tata, Joy in Our Town, and we will see you next time. Thank you.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.